Hey guys, freedom now. Freedom now. Type in freedom now as you're joining today's live show. This is your weekly immigration update and questions answered. I'm LaToya McBean Pompy, an immigration lawyer in New York, working with clients nationwide at McBean Law. Guys, you can reach out to us at 914-898-9488 to schedule a consultation. I hope you're feeling good today, okay? Encourage yourself. If you're not feeling good, shake yourself and just get into a different space in your mind and put on your positive cap today, so to speak, and encourage yourself because we all need that, right? We need to shake ourselves sometimes and say, okay, I don't have to feel this way. I could feel better. Okay, so let's go today. Type in freedom now and bring your positive energy. It's good to see you. Good to see you. We're located in White Plains, New York, but we work nationwide with folks. So just reach out to us to start the process. Hey there, Carlene. Good afternoon. It's great to see you. Thank you all for being here. I have so much to discuss with you, and then we're going to go right into your immigration questions. But let's get the chat going, guys. Type in freedom now and let me know where you're joining from today. Certainly, this is being moderated, okay? This is being moderated by my colleague who is behind the scenes helping me to ensure that everything goes smoothly. So but we just have to remind you guys not to spam, because if you spam, it's going to be a distraction, not only for me, but for those who are watching. So please do not spam us with your question, because if you do so, we will place you in a timeout or even block you, okay? So please respect these rules and ask your question just one time. Now, let's talk about, guys, some important immigration news and updates. The first is this, that and this is good news out of Chicago, okay? Good news out of Chicago. The federal judge in Chicago has ordered the release of hundreds of people who were arrested during the Chicago raids, right? Remember Operation Midway Blitz? Well, on Wednesday, November 13th, the federal judge ordered that ICE release some folks, hundreds of people. And that the Department of Justice must identify by November 19th which of the 615 potential class members or individuals remain detained, and allow for their release on a bond of $1,500 if they have no criminal record or prior removal order. Now, some people were immediately freed. My understanding is that 13 people were freed immediately, and this ruling also, it bars the government from pressuring detainees into voluntary deportation, which is what's going on. And it signals that more than 600 additional individuals could be released pending a review of whether their arrest violated a 2022 consent decree on warrantless arrest. So in Chicago, we saw Border Patrol agents, what we're seeing now, in certainly in Charlotte, North Carolina, which I'm going to discuss momentarily, but we saw Border Patrol agents, along with HSI and some other federal agents, going into the neighborhoods in a very fierce way and making warrantless arrests. And this violates a consent decree that is set up between the Homeland Security and Chicago officials. And what ICE was doing recently in Chicago violated that consent decree. So, this is huge. The decision follows allegations of course, excessive force during the raids and a lawsuit filed by the ACLU and the National Immigrant Justice Center, which advocates with advocates praising the court for holding ICE and CBP accountable while requiring both sides to submit a status update by November 21st. So this is huge because certainly other cities around the country are watching what happened in Chicago to model, things in their city. And now, certainly, this gets us into the biggest immigration news currently, and today. It changes daily, right? But today, and it has to do with Charlotte, North Carolina. What are they doing there in Charlotte, North Carolina? Well, we saw that Border Patrol moved out of Chicago for the most part and into Charlotte, North Carolina, and they've arrested so far 81 people over the weekend during immigration raids there. And they're calling this one, guys, get this, Operation Charlotte's Web. Like this is a joke, right? Operation Charlotte's Web. We saw them pulling people from their cars, chasing folks, detaining folks. We see this in videos out there. One video showed a Honduran born US citizen shouting in his car, "I'm a US citizen, I'm a US citizen," as Border Patrol smashed his window and handcuffed him. While others are are witnessing the closing of a neighborhood bakery. This is Charlotte, right? This is not New York City or Chicago where the city is so big, right? This is a small city, Charlotte, North Carolina. And so the folks there, US citizens and residents, are deeply concerned by what they're seeing because it's impacting local businesses as well. And Saturday was the largest single day arrest of immigrants in the state history. So this is unprecedented, and the governor and others are trying to coordinate their response. But Charlotte, North Carolina, is where ICE and CBP, I should say, Border Patrol, they are targeting their efforts there. So again, guys, continue to make your recordings, record, because those recordings will be very valuable to you later on. And so we're going to continue to watch what's going on there in North Carolina. Next, guys, it's this. When I saw this news a few days ago, I thought, you've got to be kidding me, right? You've got to be kidding me. Apparently, Democratic-led states had been inadvertently, some Democratic-led states have been inadvertently sharing driver driver's license data with ICE. Inadvertently, guys, Reuters reported this a few days ago that this has been going on, and so Democratic lawmakers are warning that many blue states are unknowingly allowing ICE to access their residents' driver's license data through a complex digital system called NLETS. That's NLETS, which shares data between state, federal, and local agencies. In a letter to governors, some senators urged states to block ICE's access to prevent the Trump administration from using state data for politicized mass deportation actions, noting that ICE and Homeland Security investigations conducted nearly 900,000 searches last year, and that only a handful of states like New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, Minnesota, and Washington have taken steps to cut ICE off. And so, guys, this was a little bit alarming here that unfortunately some of these states had been sharing data with ICE unknowingly. And so now there's this urge to block them, to first of all become aware of what's been going on and to take measures to block the federal government from accessing the state's data system. So that was a little shocking. Now let's get into USCIS, okay? USCIS a few days ago issued a statement on its website called DHS Strengthens Integrity in Nation's Immigration System, Returns to Common Sense Legal Immigration Levels. Guys, one thing you need to understand is this, that USCIS is being led by individuals now. If you look in at their background, if you look at where they've worked before moving to USCIS in these appointed roles, you will see that these are individuals who believe in lowering the level of immigration, taking it from this number to a much lower number. And I'm talking about legal immigration here, meaning that fewer people would be approved for a visa, fewer people would flow into the United States, fewer people will become US citizens. They're trying to decrease the levels. When you hear the word levels, that's what's going on here, and that's what the big emphasis is. By DHS and specifically USCIS. They are making it very clear now that USCIS, guys, is making it very clear that legal immigration and illegal immigration, to them, honestly, it seems like they're the same. Here's what their spokesperson said just a few days ago in this statement. The distinction between legal and illegal immigration becomes meaningless when both can destroy a country at its foundation. That's what the spokesperson for USCIS said. The distinction between legal and illegal immigration becomes meaningless when both can destroy a country at its foundation. Unchecked mass migration floods the American labor market, depressing wages and taking jobs away from hardworking Americans while straining healthcare, education, and housing systems. The Trump administration continues to execute policies to ensure legal immigration advances American interests first, and only the most deserving attain the privilege of U.S. citizenship. This is the statement from the USCIS spokesperson, who believes in a lower level of legal immigration. Now, when this is the philosophy by the administration to lower the levels of immigration, legal immigration, well, that's going to have some huge implications. And we're already starting to see this play out as the agency is not even following its own rules and regulations, which is a problem. But there's a way that legally we push back on that. Okay. So, for instance, the law says, and this is long established rules and laws, that says that agencies are bound by their own regulations, and their failure to follow their own rules and regulations renders their decisions invalid. Okay, agencies must follow their own rules and regulations, and when they don't do that, well, whatever decision they made, whatever attempt that they're making to really push people and squeeze you, because that's what this is all about, to squeeze you out of the process. And so if there's a way legally that you could push back through lawsuits, and courts around the country today, courts around the country are holding this administration accountable, saying specifically that the government's failure to follow its own immigration regulations may warrant the release of a detained person. So, for instance, let's say you are a U visa applicant and you have deferred action, so to speak. Yeah. So let's say you have your U visa case pending, to simplify things, and at the same time, maybe you have another case going, maybe an I-130 case, and you have to be interviewed by USCIS in connection to that other application. And you go into USCIS's field office, and what do? They arrest you. They arrest you, they detain you. Well, you can file a habeas and push back saying this agency has created rules and regulations for how I'm to operate with respect to my U visa case, or with respect to my green card case, and they are going against their own rules. Well, federal judges around the country are listening to that argument and releasing people once a habeas is filed. So if you are following the rules and regulations of USCIS and doing everything the right way, guys, just know that there is a way to push back when USCIS tries to squeeze you and they break their own rule. So keep that in mind because we certainly are, as we're defending people, defending them, and keeping them here in the United States. Lastly, friends, I think this is the last one, and this has to do with H-1B visas. You guys know that there's a lot of political drama going on these days between the White House, between the president and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And why am I talking about this here in this forum? Well, because President Trump several days ago was interviewed and he said, well, he doesn't think that America has talent, and we need the H-1B. He flip-flopped on the H-1B issue. We need H-1B. We need that visa, that work visa program. There's no talent here. Then, right soon thereafter, Marjorie Greene came out and said, America has talent. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to introduce a bill to end H-1B visas. I'm going to phase it out over a period of, I believe, 10 years. And so she came out directly against the president on this issue. Then you have another congressman, I forget his name, I don't have that information in front of me, who was also interviewed, also talking about the fact that he's going to introduce legislation to make to lower the levels of legal immigration as well, because certainly America has enough. There are enough people here. Let them figure out how to assimilate. And then once, we have more assimilation happening here in the United States, then we could open up immigration again. So these are the policies that are being floated these days. So pay attention to this. I don't really think that Marjorie Taylor Greene's legislation is really going to get very far, especially in light of the fact that she's going directly against President Trump on this one. All right, guys. So those are the top news that I thought you should know about. And now we're going to go back into shift, I should say, to your immigration questions. Let's go ahead and answer some of these questions. Freedom now. Someone says, let's start here. I thought that the U visa does offer protection. Yes, it does. It still does. However, just because you have a U visa pending, it doesn't mean that ICE isn't going to try to arrest you. And that's what we're seeing happening for some individuals. Some individuals with U visa cases, of course, have other very serious things on their background. For some people, they have immigration problems on their background or criminal problems on their background. And so USCIS tries to use this, or they might even have a removal order. So what USCIS is doing now, they're just looking for any attempts, any reason, so to speak, to place some people in removal. But like I said, you could push back on that and file a habeas to be released, okay? Let's go up here. Freedom now, guys. Good to see you. I see that Tennessee is in the house. All right. How long does USCIS take to accept an I-130 withdrawal? Angel is asking. Not very long, your letter goes in and they, sometimes they acknowledge it by saying we've received this and your case is no longer adjudicated, not in this exact language, but they do acknowledge it in some cases, and in other cases, they do not even acknowledge it. Let's go down here. Odette says, it's been 1 year since my I-130 has been filed. What category are you in? And also, Odette, the government has slowed down the processing of the I-130 petitions. Just an FYI about that. They've slowed that down. There's some internal things happening, from what I understand, at USCIS. Some of the adjudicating officers, people are being pulled into immigration enforcement now. There's a lot more, there's a big shift towards enforcement versus, ensuring that there are enough officers there to look at your application and make a decision on it. So my understanding is that's the primary reason for the slowdown, particularly with the work permit, which I've already shared with you guys. that it's an intentional slowdown of the work permit. And for some people, you will experience a gap of 6 months and potentially could lose your job. You could push back before your work permit expires, push back by filing a mandamus to sue the government and force them to take an immediate next step with your work permit application. So keep that in mind. Thank you. Let's go down a little bit. Freedom now. Freedom now, freedom now. Um, let's see. Oh, by the way, I see that people are sharing their good news stories. Please continue to do so. We're collecting those stories. Kevin says that my wife just received her appointment for CR1 January 2nd. That's great news. She's getting closer, right, to the finish line. At the end of today's broadcast, I will go through some of your good news stories that we've collected. Type in freedom now. And by the way, if you're watching on Facebook, share this live session with your feed. Um, can I appeal my court date? If yes, any implications? Appeal your court date. So there really isn't anything in place specifically that would allow you um, to appeal a court date. If you're saying, well, they've given me a date that is so far out there in the future. I'm not satisfied with a 2028 or 2029 hearing date. I'd really like this thing to come to an end very soon for me. You can speak with a lawyer to find out whether yours is a case where, the lawyer can submit a motion to dismiss. But it's going to really come down to your background and the strength of your case. All right. Because ICE is trying to, certainly they are trying to block dismissals because they'd like people to stay in removal long enough to get a removal order. If you're watching on, what is this forum, TikTok, you may follow me before you leave today. Hit that follow. What about Haitian TPS and Venezuela? It's, TPS for Haiti still has an end date of February 3rd, I believe. Venezuela, it's the end date has already come and gone. And so what you guys need to really be thinking about is whether you could stay here long term, whether an asylum case makes sense for you. Speak with a lawyer about whether you can pursue asylum or maybe even a family petition. It doesn't have to be asylum. All right. Thank you guys for being here. Double tap the screen. Double tap the screen. Super Maria 69 says my spouse had his interview last week and he passed the interview. Congratulations. Good news. That's great. Let's see. Can you do adjustment of status when you've been paroled into the United States? Yes, yes. In most cases, adjustment of status is possible. Let's see. How can I reopen my case? My motion to reopen was denied twice, but I have an approved FAWA. I'm not certain why your motion to reopen was denied. Were they timely filed motions? You said that you'd filed two. What was the reason for, I'm assuming, the adjustment of status denial? We would take a look at that. We would want to see why did they deny the adjustment of status part, the I-485. Can a hit and run still have, that was dismissed 14 years ago, still have any impact on my immigration case? If it was a true dismissal, I don't think that it's going to really hurt you, but that has to be handled very delicately because that, hit and run, that's, any USCIS officer seeing those facts will most likely will be very uncomfortable with that because it sounds violent, right? So I would want to make sure it's a true dismissal that you had gotten there before we file a case for you. Is it true that TPS will be offered to Jamaicans here in the United States because of the hurricane? I have not heard anything like that. I highly doubt that. Who God knows what the interest of the U.S. government, what interest it has in Jamaica, and what's being discussed. But I highly doubt that because, TPS is considered a legal process, a legal immigration process. And you just heard me say that they're looking to lower the levels of legal immigration. And so by adding hundreds of thousands of people to TPS, goes against that idea of lowering the levels. So, and I have not heard that come up at all. Let's go freedom now. Freedom. I have heard someone ask that question in another forum, but I have not heard that the government is seriously considering that. That would be great. Let's see. So Gabriel says that Gabrielle I filed my I-130 January 20th, followed by I-45 and 765 in October of this year, did biometrics in November. Okay, got an interview scheduled on December 11th. No criminal background, but I have overstayed my B2 visa. Well, who is filing for you? Because the rules and regulations say that USCIS must look the other way if it's an immediate relative filing for those who have overstayed their visa. Now, that's a good segue into what some of you guys might have heard over the weekend, and I heard about it last week actually, but I've been waiting to discuss this with you. At some USCIS offices, field offices, San Diego is one, and I want to say Charlotte is the other field office that my colleague told me about, but USCIS had arrested people who were there in their office going through the legal immigration process, arrested them. From what I understand so far, I don't know the facts on each case, arrested them because they overstayed their visa, which again runs counter to their rules and regulations. So these people can get out. They can get out of detention with a habeas, of course. But what happens, unfortunately, is that it's placing these individuals now in the removal system, which is absurd, but it's shifting jurisdiction to the immigration court. And so USCIS no longer will have jurisdiction over their I-45 green card application, which is a problem. It could slow them down and delay things. But they could still get through, they could still get their green card at the end of the day. It can happen for them. But I have heard that at those two, in San Diego for sure, and I think Charlotte is the next one, um, where some people have been arrested who are there, sitting there at the USCIS field office waiting. Yes, I've just confirmed it. It's Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm looking at a text from my colleague about that last week. They were arrested at their interviews just because of a visa overstay. So their attorneys will need to become very aggressive to get them out of detention. I haven't heard any news yet on the DV lottery. They've delayed significantly announcing the DV lottery. I haven't heard, it hasn't come out yet to my knowledge. Let's see. Good afternoon. Freedom now, freedom now, freedom now. Thank you. Thank you for those saying thank you. Thank you. Can my mom, who has a resident permit, petition for me? I came to the US by the border and I have a pending asylum. I have been issued a work permit. Can my mother, who has a resident Okay, so this person entered the United States by through the border. She has a pending, or he has a pending asylum case, which is why he or she has the work permit. And this person has a green card holder parent. Now, your green card holder parent can put in an I-130 for you if you're not married, okay? That parent can get you in line. But as far as getting you the green card here in the United States, most likely it is not going to work out for you, but you could still get through your parent, but you will need a waiver after several years of waiting for the first part of your process to be approved, and then you'll have to consular process. Thank you guys for being here today. What can you do in regards to TPS ending? So if TPS is ending, GVO is asking here on Instagram, if you have TPS and it's ending, speak with an attorney. Do some research first if you'd like. I recommend that you do some research first before speaking with an attorney so that you'll have a little bit more background and some questions that you could ask pointedly to that attorney. Um, do that research and make an appointment, and maybe make two appointments, two different attorneys, and get some ideas about your background and what's possible for you. But certainly asylum is the first easy thing that obviously most people think about, but it's not always the best way to go for some people. If you do not have an asylum case, guys, certainly do not file it. I know it can offer that continuity, right, of that work permit, but it can lead to some trouble, right, of being placed in removal if USCIS doesn't approve it. And they are actually turning around, from what I understand. It hasn't happened to any of our clients yet, though. They're turning around these asylum applications very quickly for those who had entered over the last like 2 or 3 years through a Biden parole, who then applied for asylum. Quite a bit of folks are being denied, from what I understand, or not being approved. I'm seeing these good news come in. I'm not going to share any more of them until maybe next week. Charmaine, I see your good news. Congratulations. We're going to grab that and share it next week. Thank you, guys. How does one prepare for a removal case prepare? Trish is asking, how do one prepare for a removal procedure to see an immigration judge? Well, you first of all make sure you have an attorney who had taken a look at your background and evaluated, Trish, what's possible for you, what your relief is, so that you could be more confident walking into that hearing, knowing that, okay, here's the way that this could end for me. Here's how it could end for me. It's going to end through whatever the relief is that the lawyer worked with you on. I don't know if you're referring to your last hearing, the individual hearing. If so, that's going to require a lot of preparation. The first hearing won't really require much preparation on your part because it's largely procedural issues that will be discussed, like your address, is this your attorney? Do you agree to these allegations in your notice to appear? It's just some basic things, so to speak, at that first hearing. But the last hearing, now you've got to review your application carefully. You've got to review your statement carefully, your declaration, if your case has one. You've got to look at all of the evidence carefully. You've got to really prepare yourself with your attorney and take that last hearing very seriously, because that's when the immigration judge is going to make a decision. Let's see. Is it normal to receive a biometric reuse notice and later USCIS changed their mind and scheduled a biometric appointment? Elijah's asking. I don't think it means that much, Elijah. To just follow their procedures. It's hard for me to say what could have caused them to do that. Maybe they realized that your prints have expired, so to speak, in their system, and so they're calling you in. Maybe you had gotten a notice that they're going to reuse your biometric data incorrectly. Maybe it was an incorrect notice that they issued. All of that is possible. Don't worry too much about it. Don't read so much into things like that. Just go do your biometrics and move on with your life, okay? Let's see. Humanitarian parole be granted to Jamaicans due to the hurricane. First of all, humanitarian parole takes forever. If it's the kind of parole that I'm thinking about that you're referring to here, to seek, It's a tough one. That's going to be a real tough one. I think I just have a hard time, Lynn, seeing this administration set up anything good for immigration, for immigrants. It's just hard for me to process that idea. Yes, they might surprise me. Look what they did with DACA. They did a really good thing with DACA by allowing new applications, initial applications to be part of the process again. But I don't see them setting up something new and amazing for people who are hurting, particularly Black people. I'm just going to say it because I have, why not? I don't see them doing that. Okay, let's go. Is it a good time to apply for a green card? Is it a good time to apply for a green card? Yes, it is. Why? Because the government is in the process of attacking, my words, attacking, targeting legal immigration and trying to pull back on their own rules and regulations. So while everything is still in place right now, you should really move forward with what's available, because who knows if in the future if it's going to be available to you. Okay, we don't know. I don't know how long the I-601 process is still going to be in place, or the I-601A process. I don't know. This government, when you look again at the background of the people and what they believe in and where they come from, they believe in making quite a bit of these policies into law. It's called codifying, making it permanent, embedding these changes into our law, into our system. That's the real goal, not just with immigration, but with other things that we see going on. Their ultimate goal is to codify and make permanent. So, do what you can now using whatever availability or pathways that we have now built into our system. Absolutely, yes, Congress needs to act in order to codify, to make things permanent, make it into law. But, I don't see much backbone on Capitol Hill. Do you? Can same-sex marriage be denied? I have not heard about them denying or, of course, I think there, anecdotally that there's a bias, of course, towards same-sex couples these days under this administration, but I haven't really heard of them denying cases on the basis of that, because same-sex marriage in the United States, it is still legal, okay? So immigration has to recognize marriage in the place where it is legal, okay? But I could understand why you would be afraid in light of or concerned in light of what we're seeing. Thank you for the gifts on TikTok. I appreciate it. Double tap the screen. Thank you. Um, How do I respond to the question, if asked at the National Visa Center interview, why my petitioner, my daughter, isn't in the USA at the moment because she works abroad? That's going to be a challenging one, because the petitioner, when by the time you get before the U.S. Embassy, you have to prove that your petitioner is domiciled in the United States. They sleep there. That's their residence, their place of residence. That's where they are permanently. So steps will need to be taken by your daughter to reestablish her domicile in the United States. And you do that by, her having an apartment or a house, a job, driver's license, bank account, those kinds of things. And it has to be real so that you can be approved. Okay. All right. Have you heard, this is Super Chat for $4.99. Have you heard about the detentions in California for I-45 interview based on visa oversight? I've discussed this earlier about San Diego. I mentioned it. Yes. How can one protect themselves? Well, first of all, you if you have a very strong concern that you could be detained at your interview, speak with an attorney about how you can how that attorney can be prepared to file a habeas immediately for you in the event you are detained. That's one thing that you can do, and that attorney will certainly attorney certainly will know your background and know what's possible for you. I don't want everyone to worry about this. That's why I was sitting on this for a few days. I really was, but I had to say something because I see that others are talking about it. And I don't want you guys to think, well, why isn't McBean talking about this? Because I don't want to scare you too much. I want to wait and gather more facts before I bring these things to you because, you know, words are powerful. But yes, there are verifiable reports that the San Diego and Charlotte USCIS field offices arrested a few people. I don't have the numbers yet. Certainly, they're not arresting everyone who has overstayed their visa. Okay, that's not happening there. Okay, let's go down a little bit. It's not happening at those field offices. Let's see. I filed for naturalization a year ago, and it keeps saying that 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. That's what the system keeps telling me. But it's stuck on step 3, which is pending an interview appointment. Now, with all the ICE crackdowns going on regarding people with green cards, with extensions, what is my fate? What is your fate? Okay, so it sounds to me like you're still a conditional resident because you mentioned people with green cards with extensions. I'm assuming that's what you mean by that. Um, in any event, because if you had a 10-year green card, you would be talking, I think, about renewal of that green card. In any event, maybe or maybe not. Don't worry too much about this. Yes, natural and Sebastian, I know you're also hearing that naturalization cases usually take 4 to 6 months, and they really do, 4 to 6. It's fast. Most people are approved under a year, okay, of the naturalization application pending, and you know that, which is why you're concerned. But I don't want you to be that concerned about it. I don't know what your background is. I don't know what you've noted on your green card application and your maybe visa application. I don't know your history, so I don't want to scare you into thinking that, oh my God, they're digging that deep into my profile. You just hold on there with those fears and take it one step at a time. But I also think you should speak with an attorney because your case might even be ripe for a mandamus to force them to get going, move on with your naturalization application if it's pending outside of the normal processing times. Hey there, Nadia. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Someone says that he heard on 1010 Wins this morning in New York about TPS for Jamaicans. We'll have to look into that. I'll have to look into that because 1010 Wins is a major news, not major, but you know, they're credible. So I'll look into that. And I'm going to ask my colleague to help me with that as well because I'd want to I'd want to talk about it too. If that's the case, I would love to talk about that. Freedom now, guys. Let's jump over here. Um, right. Someone is asking about the typical time for naturalization. I've already shared with you 4 to 6 months, really, for most people. Because they do move fast with naturalization. Although you heard me I did read earlier that the spokesperson from USCIS said that they're only going to grant U.S. citizenship to those, you know, based on who have the privilege. It's a privilege. And they're going to really, I think, look to have fewer naturalized citizens. This is all from the old playbook. Nothing's new here. Nothing When I say old playbook, I'm talking the 1800s playbook. I'm talking about 1800s playbook, guys. There's nothing new here. Just let's just get smarter about immigration, do what we've got to do, and move on with our life, okay? Um, My brother's partner didn't file taxes for 4 years. Now she wants to help him adjust his status. Well, that's going to be a problem. That is going to be a problem for your brother's case, Chris. Thank you for the gifts. She'll probably need a joint sponsor with her case, but that's going to be a problem. They're going to look into that and inquire why she hasn't filed her taxes. I see another question about Jamaica TPS. Has anyone, what's the story? Okay, I need credible source. Uh, Once I find a credible source behind the TPS for Jamaicans, I will do a video about it, okay? Sometimes you guys know that I find out information live before you. Sometimes you break the news to me, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm not embarrassed. I don't care. I don't know everything. Um, I have been granted withholding of removal, okay, 10 years ago. Can I adjust my status through my US citizen mom who passed away in 2022? I'm not certain. I'm not certain how that's going to work for you with the reinstatement. But contact us first to take a look at some of those facts to see whether there was an I-130 through your mom. If so, was it approved? There's some things that we would need to drill down on, okay? Um, Work permits. Someone says, can you be so kind as to repeat what you said about the work permit? What you can do is certainly watch this video again on McBean Immigration TV. We're going to push it out there. On the work permit side, I said earlier that the government, I think, is intentionally slowing down the work permit process. And of course, they had gotten rid of the automatic extensions attached to some work permits. And people will experience a gap, most likely, of 6 months. Why? Because for some categories, it takes the government 12 months, believe it or not, which is ridiculous, 12 months to approve the work permit renewal. And so if they tell you to file early, send in your work permit renewal application 6 months. At the 6 month mark of its expiring, well, you still have a math problem of 6 month gap. And so you're going to need to think about, before your work permit expires and before you go into that gap period, of filing a mandamus, which is a federal lawsuit that forces the government to do its job and take that next step in your case, which is hopefully to approve the work permit application. Okay. I believe that's what you're referring to. Let's see. Do you think I can file my I-130 and I-485 and later I can adjust my kids because they are overseas? William is asking whether he can do I-130 and I-45 and later file for his children who are overseas. If you're here in the United States and you have a way of proving that our government admitted you into the country after inspecting you, well, you can adjust your status. And also, there's more. You have to be in a category that allows for adjustment of status, maybe like the category of immediate relative of a U.S. citizen. You mentioned an I-130 here, so I'm assuming you are an immediate relative. And once you get your green card, certainly you could file for your children and bring them here with you. I'm on TPS. Can my sibling apply for me and I wait for the green card here in the United States, Marguerite is asking. So your U.S. sibling can put in an I-130 petition, family petition for you, Marguerite. But unfortunately, you will get into that period of unlawful status, right? No status. No status. And that's a problem. And this sibling category takes 12, 13, or even longer years to be approved. And so with that being said, and the fire, they've decided there's an emergency going on. We're right by the firehouse. So after your I-130 is approved, those many years later, you'll need a waiver and then leave the United States if if you qualify for a waiver. Your sibling can get you in line, certainly, but just keep that part in mind that you have some years ahead of you and a waiver. All right. A friend, a friend past misrepresentation denied her A friend's past misrepresentation denied her first green card. The second application fixed the issue and she was approved. Now she fears applying for U.S. citizenship. Should she do it? Mashudi is asking. Mashudi, I don't know, because um, uh, normally, USCIS would not make any issue about a person's past misrepresentation for which they had already reviewed maybe a waiver and approved the green card application. They wouldn't then during citizenship go back to that old issue. But as you can see, you got to understand who the players are today at USCIS. Not to be overly dramatic, but I read to you that statement from the spokesperson at USCIS. It's on their website under their press releases, in which they are going after legal immigration and they really want to bring those levels down. And U.S. citizenship is a privilege, he talked about in his quote there. So, with all of that in mind, is it far-fetched that they would try through the naturalization process of going back to this old issue for which they've already forgiven you, not you, but your friend, for? It's not far-fetched. Okay, so I would want to drill down a little bit before saying let's go for naturalization. If we say to you, you should do it, let's do it. We're already preparing and knowing that if USCIS makes this a big issue, we're going to push back because, again, they're doing something that goes against their own rules and regulations. You guys got to get used to me saying that. They're going against their own rules and regulations, which is a problem, and the federal courts are backing us up with this issue. Freedom now. By the way, okay, one of my about Jamaicans, TPS, apparently there are just growing calls for TPS for Jamaica, okay, due to the hurricane. Okay, immigration advocates and a group of 43 members of Congress led by Congresswoman Yvette Clarke from Brooklyn, my mother's congresswoman, are requesting it. But as of now, there's no official indication of that happening. So there's a push. There's a push by Congresswoman Yvette Clarke and 43 members of Congress. I like this is important. 43 members are pushing for it, but it's going to ultimately be the administration's decision because to grant TPS, that's an executive um, um, authority. Let's see. Thank you guys for spending your lunch hour with me. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be live again tomorrow. I'm trying to get into this Tuesday night thing. Although, by the end of it, I'm just so exhausted, but I'm trying to get to make sure that those of you who could watch me in the evenings get a chance to ask your questions and to interact. So I'll be live again on Tuesday, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. So on all forums. So join me tomorrow for my live session during that time. DACA, things are pushing through. with respect to DACA. Guys, you know, for news related to DACA, the ins and outs of what's happening on the litigation side in Texas, immigration attorney Chuck Cook is doing a terrific job on YouTube breaking this issue down. Go watch his last live session, which was from last week, in which he does a play-by-play as far as the motions and the responses and the response briefs and what's happening there. But he feels very confident that DACA is back, and he even said it during his show. Same thing I've said to you, and you guys try to chew off my head. That DACA is back. But get the play-by-play from his live session last week, and of course subscribe to his channel so that you could stay in the loop. But the short of it is that the court is still moving forward, reviewing the responses that have been submitted to the court, and hopefully maybe in January a decision can be made on DACA. But again, Texas is really trying to go back, go backtrack a little bit. They're really just trying to get rid of DACA entirely, but it's too late now in the litigation for Texas to go back to some of its old arguments. Things are too far ahead now. And so the government, the federal government has already said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to open up DACA to new applications, those who had not yet been granted DACA, right? They're going to be given this chance. There's 90,000 applications pending for these new people, initial applicants. U.S. government is going to move forward with making a decision on those applications, but there's some things that need to happen before that. The government has to sort out where everyone is living. Because if you're residing in Texas, you will not be able to get a work permit renewal. You could only have deferred action, and then unlawful presence will begin to accrue. And so, you know, you make your decision about whether Texas is a place where you will have your residence in light of what's coming with DACA. So it's moving a lot slower than we wanted to because of the government shutdown, really slowed things down. All right. Whew. But Chuck Cook does a much better job at explaining this than me. So go watch his live session from last week. I have some good news to share with you guys. These are your good news stories. The first one is from Charmaine Williams, 8104. She says, I applied for adjustment of status last March and was granted in 3 months. I'm now in the process of removing the condition. Okay. Congratulations. That's good. Rose Skew 3547 says, Hi, attorney. My removal of conditions was approved in 18 months. Recently, I was able to travel outside of the United States and came back without any hassles. Guys, you heard it from her, not me, right? I've been telling you guys that you can travel on your 2-year green card, but you know, use some wisdom. If you're no longer with your spouse, you might have an issue with questions, additional scrutiny. All Saints Gal says, I'm a U.S. citizen and my husband and I started the process to adjust his status in April 2025. Priority date was the 25th and his green card was approved on July 16th after being interviewed. Congratulations. So terrific. And I also have on my desk, I've been meaning to film a video for you guys showing you some timelines. We've also been experiencing these very fast approval, guys, in these marriage cases this year. I'll share that information with you in another video. Eddie Bisio says, my kids' work permits were approved after they had been pending for months. Excellent. And then we also shared a good news success story yesterday on Sunday to our subscribers. After living in the U.S. since 2002, our client from Suriname avoided applying for citizenship for over 20 years because she feared her N-400 guys might expose her husband, who has a decades-old removal order from a past asylum case. When she came to us in 2025, we explained that his order of removal has no impact on her eligibility. And then we discovered another issue that was holding her back. Several tax returns had wrong marital status on them, which could affect the good moral character requirement. We helped her correct those records and filed her N-400 in August. USCIS scheduled her interview in November. And after a thorough preparation and attorney representation at the interview, she was recommended for approval on the spot. And I don't know, I have to check in with the team to see whether we have her oath ceremony date. But guys, things are moving with immigration. All right, things are moving. So reach out to us at McBeanLaw.com, but you know, that's not what I wanted to say. I wanted to say reach out to us at 914-898-9488 to schedule a consultation with us. Thanks so much for being with me today. I will be back again tomorrow night, Tuesday night at 8 p.m. with my live show. You guys are the best. Share this with others, comment below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.